Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get going into the episode this week, there has been a big video that hit the internet. I mean, some people might say, I think the term the kids say is it broke the internet. Now, are you aware of what I'm talking about, Joy?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, it's one of the big YouTube videos. It's one of these ones with, some views.
I feel like I should know, but I don't know where he's going with it.
Well, it's my interpretation of the theme tune of the greatest television program of all time.
Okay, yes, that
week.
Viral video. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it calls it. It's a viral video. That's the words I'm looking for.
I apologize, Tim. That wasn't the first thing that came to mind. But yes, you're correct. That went viral this week.
It did indeed. I mean, we've had hundreds of views to my video. I can honestly say that. It's had hundreds of views. I was very pleased with how it came out. I had the concept all in my brain for a long time, how I wanted it to go. And it was an awful lot of work for 90 seconds, let me tell you that.
Well, I watched it and I instantly thought, Tim's been thinking about this moment for a long time because I am a subscriber to Tim's channel and I get the notifications when the videos come out. That's funny, though. I was like, okay, well, I read something about Elon Musk earlier. What is Tim talking about?
Well, I was just saying maybe this is a shameless plug, but if you are, if you'd like to watch my viral video, go to the Tim O'Sullivan Guitarist YouTube channel, and you will be looking for the theme to Knight Rider. It is it's a video amongst millions. There we go.
And if you guys just heard me hit the table, it was me adjusting my phone thing. I'm sorry, Tim, if there was a dog noise in the background.
We're all friends, Joy. I'm not even going to edit that out. It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay, so we're going to go into the Ask Joy section of the podcast. Now, we did put a question up on our social channels, and we've had a few replies on the Facebook. So, Joy, these are some questions for you.
Okay.
The first question is from Adam Lawson.
Okay.
And Adam wants to know, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Adam asked that because he already knows there's an ongoing debate. Okay, so Adam is the husband to my best friend Molly, which Molly was a guest show host, like what, first or second episode, Tim? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, we did test episodes on YouTube before we published this on Buzzsprout. So yes, she was a very early guest to our podcast.
So anyway, that is her spouse. And he knows that I stand by a hot dog is not a sandwich, and I will die on that hill. And he's trying to get me amped up because that has been a debate for a while now. No, Adam, it is not a sandwich. I stand by that.
Well, if it's not a sandwich, how do you define it?
It's like its own thing. It's almost like, I know what people want me to say is like a hoagie or something like that, but it's not. I'm sorry. A sandwich should consist of a protein, because I'm not going to say a meat because I don't eat a lot of meat, but it should be a protein, a cheese, or a dairy, or if you're non-dairy, a non-dairy type, something with the fatty substance. Then you need your condiments and you need your lettuce and your tomato. And I realize some people may eat all things on the hot dog, but stop. I will die, because then if we're getting into the gray area of a hot dog being a sandwich, do you think a taco is a sandwich? Because I don't.
Well, I mean, that's not bread. Being controversial here. I think if you're going to break it down and define it, what do you have with a hot dog? You have bread, and then you have a protein, and then you have condiments.
We're going to Google. What's the definition of a hot dog? What is the definition of... Because here's the thing. I eat sandwiches on wraps, and that's a tortilla, like a taco. If you eat a soft shell, we could go on for days, Tim.
Maybe what we need to do is put a poll on our Twitter. Is a hot dog a sandwich? There we are. That's what this will settle that once and for all.
Okay, yes. So an item of food consisting of 2 pieces of bread with meat, cheese, or a filling in between them, eaten as a light meal. There are no 2 pieces of bread in a hot dog. If you're having, unless you accidentally rip it in half, which could happen. But I ate Wife Light hot dogs. They're the best vegetarian hot dogs, if you didn't know, on this past Sunday. Mm-hmm. And there was only 1 piece of bread. The bread is connected. I stand by my decision. A hot dog is not a sandwich. All right, what's my next question?
Okay, so this other question comes from someone you may know. This is Charlie Thompson. I think you know that gentleman.
Yeah, he's something. All right, what do you ask me?
He wants to know, how often do you have Starbucks?
Rude. So the reason, if anybody didn't pick up on this is my significant other. He was mad at me today because I made him stop and give me Starbucks. He swore it was like the 6th time in the row, but it's only the 3rd time. So maybe 3 to 6 days a week. Possibly. It depends on how much of the money I have laying around. But to be fair, it's not the worst addiction in the world to have. There are worse things, Tim. I could be doing worse things than drinking my Starbucks coffee. And for everybody judging me, I don't do the $6 or the $7. I get a simple iced coffee or a cold brew with just almond milk. It's not the really expensive frappuccinos with 74 grams of sugar in them and things like that.
Okay. What's your position on Dunkin' Donuts?
Absolutely not.
You don't like Dunkin'?
So here is my thing, and it is going to sound so bougie, and the internet is going to come for me, and that is a problem. I struggle with any iced coffee that is not Starbucks. And here's why. And Dunkin's an example of it. I don't know if they're putting crack or what in the Starbucks coffee when you get the iced coffee, but no other coffee, Tim, has this. So like I get maybe like 2 pumps of the original syrup because I don't like all the sugars. It's just like a little bit of a syrup with the almond milk. And it mixes right. But every other place I get coffee from, it could be a local shop, it could be a national shop. It's like the syrup is separate of the coffee. It's either on the bottom or on the top, and it doesn't mix it. It creates sour flavor. Starbucks is the only one for me who has mastered that.
Okay. Because I know for a lot of people go to Dunkin' because it's significantly cheaper.
Well, and I think Dunkin' is a lot like Tim Hortons in Canada too, because it's cheaper, and I think you've got a bigger food menu. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that's also a factor. But I will stand by my Starbucks, and I'm sorry, everyone, if that makes me bougie, but it is what it is.
Well, you like it, Joy, and that is fine by me.
And there's going to be somebody out there, Saz, who will tell me, and Stacy Duncan, who will tell me that iced coffee is just mud water, but that's a debate for another time.
I've heard coffee described as dirty bean juice.
What was it I said in the last episode? We were talking about him on the bus, and I was like, well, probably tea because he's from England. And you're like, yes, because they haven't had coffee in England, Joy.
Yeah, it hasn't made its way across the Atlantic yet, you know.
What was I thinking?
It's like, what are these beans? What you do that with them? You were there and you drink that?
Because it's such a foreign concept. Anyway, yes. I just imagine every British person is constantly drinking tea with a crumpet in their hand. And there's a royal jubilee happening in the background at all time.
I have no idea, Joy. It's been a long time since I've been there. What goes on now, I don't know. I dip into the news once in a while and dip out again. And
Well, if any of our UK listeners would like to follow in and let us know, has coffee made it mainstream? And do you have crumpets on constant availability? This episode's going to be a doozy. I'm already telling you. All right.
Well, let me move on to our CD of the week. So this is actually a great. Oh, what hand do I want on that one? So this is.
You stop laughing. All right, try this again.
Okay, let's do the CD of the week, Joyce. So This is a great album. This is the Mellotones. And it's an album called Not the Same. Now, the Mellotones are a Dutch band. Now, they were not on a major label. They were on the Blues Matters label, which is sort of an indie label of sorts. But what's great about this is just great music. And I actually had a few connections with the Mellotones. A friend of mine knew the band, and I went down to see them somewhere in Kent. And they were Dutch, and they were enjoyed things that are now legal in the state of Virginia. And we drove down to Kent, and they were playing in some pub, and they had this huge Renault van, this kind of blue Renault van. And we couldn't find them in the venue. We're looking round, and we thought, oh, they must be in the van. So we knocked on the door of the van, and the door slid open, and it was like a Cheech and Chong film. This fog.
That's why they're mellow.
Yeah, this fog came out, and they all just looked like with red eyes going, hey, guys, how's it going?
That's how they sounded to you, Tim.
Yeah.
I like that attempt at their act, but that's why they're so mellow, Tim.
Exactly. But but I will say, I don't know if this is available anywhere, whether it's on Spotify or whether it's on YouTube or anything like that, but this is such a good album. I would go as far to say this maybe is in my top 15 albums of all time.
What kind of music are they? Are they like a hippie indie type thing?
No,
or?
They sort of play live. They play more like traditional blues, but this is more crossover. They've embraced some kind of like hip hop type sounds in here. There's a lot more production in here, but they are playing very much bluesy music. But there's a lot of comedy that goes with this music as well. And it's not comedy, but it's like you listen to it and you just smile because the things they say and the things they do are good. The track on here I like King of the Jam is a great song. The opening track, No Sympathy, is good. I mean, this is just, oh, You Gotta Have a Man is great. I mean, this whole album is fantastic.
It's a cool looking album cover too. That's why I was asking what kind of music they did, because based off the album cover, I wouldn't have guessed that. Interesting.
Yeah, and as I said, I met them on that occasion. There was another time I met them. And in fact, I went on a trip to Holland one time, and I stayed with the guitar player, Ruben, at his house.
So you're basically a member.
Well, I don't think I ever jam with them, but though I've been in and around the Melatones, I don't think they have the same lineup now. I mean, this album is from 2005, but I don't know. I highly recommend it if you're able to check this out, because this is just really good music.
Fair enough. For everybody asking, I was moving my phone in case it vibrated near the mic. But yes, I was still listening. I mean, that's cool, though. I mean, I love that kind of bluesy sound, especially sometimes indie bands do that better. I think that when you get that mass production, it loses some of its soul.
Absolutely. But yeah, definitely check this album out. This is my CD of the week.
All right.
Fantastic. All right, so we are into the episode, and this week it's Joy's turn to pick the topic. And as ever, I don't know what she's going to pick. So, Joy, over to you.
I've got a bunch of puns planned. So we're getting ready to get into the hot topic, Tim. Are you feeling spicy? All right, the episode, this song's about hot and heat. So for people who don't know, me and Tim we live in Southwest Virginia, and it has been, today we were actually talking about, is not as hot. Last week was way worse. But it's been soaring between 80 degrees Fahrenheit to 100 degrees Fahrenheit for the last 2 to 3 weeks. We've had horrible thunderstorms every night because the humidity is crazy. And it's a different kind of heat here because it is so humid. Mm-hmm. When I was in Greece, it was not humid. When I was in Spain, it's very humid. There's two different types of heat. And Tim's talking about Vegas is kind of a dry heat. It's just, there's different types of heat. And this one is the worst one because it almost is like you walk outside and you're just melting. So I decided that to be topical, it's going to be songs that have the words heat, hot, or fire inferno type things.
Yeah, warm stuff. I will say, actually, if you want to see how hot it has been in here in Virginia, if you go to our YouTube channel of the No Name Music Cast, the video from last week's CD of the week, I think it was Level 42 album, I think we posted, like you literally can see sweat dripping down my face.
My hair was like plastered to my forehead. And I kept messing with it the entire time because it was horrible. And me and Tim have to kind of shut off all of our, well, Tim's also upstairs when he does the podcast, which the air doesn't get to, which we've talked about. Everybody's going to know the workings of your house, Tim, because we've said that like 47 times. And I have to shut off the air when I'm in here because it's loud. And you guys don't want to hear the entire time we're doing the podcast. So
exactly. The other thing as well, people are very familiar with this room that I broadcast from because this is a room I use if I do Zoom chats with my friends. When I make my viral videos, they're always in this room as well. So I would imagine anyone that's involved with any of that is so familiar with this room anyway.
I changed rooms on us, and Tim was like, Tim's eye twitched, but it was for work reasons. Anyway, so songs about heat. Let me see. I have a list here. We're just going to go through them. Some of these are going to be super obvious to you, Tim, and some of them are probably songs you haven't thought of in a while. I'll try to do a mix. So let's see. Which I'll do a favorite for Tim. It is a Miss Katy Perry, and it's Hot and Cold.
Yes, this comes from the era of Katy Perry that I really like. Later Katy Perry, when she was embracing more of a kind of dance hip hop sound, it doesn't resonate with me as much. But like the very early Katy Perry, is that one? I think that's from One of the Boys. I think
it is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I'll double check, but I'm fairly certain
it's either that one or it's from the next album that she released. California.
One of the Boys. We were correct because it's 2008. It was my senior year of high school.
And that whole album, I like it because it has a band feel about it, and I think it was the producer played all the instruments on it, but they're all live instruments, and she'd just come off the back of doing that Warped tour.
Well, and I think one thing that's really important about this album specifically, so we've talked a little bit, that Dr. Luke is on there, but I don't want to talk about him because he's got a bad rap if you've heard of him. But Max Martin, which is one of our friends from Stockholm, Sweden, who's handling he produced that album or was one of the major producers of that album. So he also did he was behind Roar, I Kissed a Girl, Blank Space. Like there's just some Maroon 5 songs. It's Gonna Be Me and Sing. The Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way. He is a connoisseur, or I don't know, he's one of those people we've talked about in Sweden that they have the pop mixed down perfect. And so I think that made all the difference in that album and her, because that was like her breakout album. Because 2008, I know, was my senior year of high school. I remember I Kissed a Girl came out. I remember Hot and Cold came out, maybe 2009 for I Kissed a Girl. Don't quote me on that internet. But yeah, he's just like this expert, and he is the predecessor of that previous early 90s guy who did a lot of, I don't know. For those who don't know, we've talked about it on the podcast anytime. For some reason, Sweden has a very big mark on pop music.
Yeah, I maybe it's the heritage that comes from ABBA, because you know ABBA is probably the most successful music act ever to come from Sweden, and I think at some point they were responsible for I don't know what the figure is, but it's something like 25% of Sweden's GDP was coming from ABBA or something ridiculous like that.
Well, and I know he did. Do you know that Dins Pop is like DEINISZPOP? I think it was popular in Europe, Dins Pop or something like that. Anyway, it's like some pop sound that was popular in Europe that was predecessor of all this. And then he started working with, and let me just pull it up. I was reading this when I was researching all this. He's worked with the Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, Pink, Usher, Avril Lavigne, Jessie J, Katy Perry, Christina Aguilera, Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, The Weeknd, Coldplay, and like 1,000 others.
Wow. Yeah, it just seems to be there's something about Sweden that they have that pop sensibility, and there's so many producers, songwriters and stuff all come from Sweden.
Well, here you go. With accepting the Polar Music Prize, Martin highlighted ABBA, Kiss, Prince, and maybe you know this is Lasse Holm, Lassehol. It might be somebody from Sweden. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
As his inspirations. So he says, purpose for songs, played instruments, and engineered the artists who brought him in the near process of vocal, for example, on Britney Spears' second album, Oops, I Did It Again, had already written 7 songs, preceded the record with layers of music before Britney even arrived in the studio.
Wow.
It only took her 1 week to do the vocals. Martin's team worked more like an alternative band than alternative singers. Martin explained his method. I want to be a part of every note, every single movement going on in the studio. I want to forget nothing. I want nothing missed. I'm a perfectionist. The sound should decide what kind of music is being made and what sounds like all of it. Sorry, that's the way he said it. I don't know exactly what that means. The why, the when, the how. That was him in LA Times. Now, he is like known for this, and he's a predecessor of somebody else that I was doing the same kind of thing. And this guy owned I watched a whole documentary on it on Netflix about the Swedish pop history. And they talk about most of them can't read music, Tim. they don't know how to read music, but they know how chords work. So they know if I'm doing a C chord, I'm going to hit 3 notes down at the same time to make a 3 sound. And they called it the claw. And I think I talked about this once on the thing. So what they would do is they just go to the piano and they would keep hitting notes, like 3 notes at a time or 4 notes at a time. The basic, when you're seeing someone hold their hand on the piano or on a guitar or on the ukulele, that kind of feeling you have, they would do that until they find what they wanted. I'm sure eventually maybe they had some type of, there's probably someone there who has to have some music background, right? But they were just talking about the main people working at this record label they just didn't have it.
There we are. And you said that chap won the Polar Prize. Now, Polar, of course, is ABBA's record label.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that when I said it. That's a good point. His net worth is approximately $260 million as of 2017.
Swedish krona or American dollars?
American dollars, because I'm on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So, and he's won the ASCAPA Songwriter Award more than anybody else, a record 11 times.
Wow.
Yep. And he's worked with Jive, Chiron, RCA, Capital, LaFace Island, Location Songs, something in, I imagine, whatever, Swedish, Atlantic, Maritone, and MX. That's but anyway, so back to Katy Perry. Yeah, he was a big factor in that song, and I think that's why it became so big. Also, her voice is gorgeous, and old Katy Perry had something unique and authentic about it. If you watch her old performances, they're so cool.
I tell you cannot go wrong with Miss Catherine Hudson.
It's true. It's probably that Christian background, soul coming through. For those who don't know, Katy Perry's parents were pastors.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Which is not shocking because how many other people in the world, you know what I mean? Tim grew up in the church and learned music. But anyway, so this was speaking of Charles Thompson earlier and his question about Starbucks. He requested this song be put in here.
Okay.
I'm hoping Tim knows it. It's Hot in Here by Nelly.
Yes, it's getting hot in here. Yes, I do know this song. And what year is this? Early 2000s?
It would have had to been because I was in high school, so maybe 2004, 2005, something around there.
Yeah, so it's one of those songs which I'm familiar with because I was playing nightclubs and the like in the early 2000s with The Guilty Party, and it's something you would hear that the DJ was playing. So there's a very small subset of music from the era of dance music from the early 2000s that I'm super familiar with just by going into places like the Copied Beach in Bracknell.
So it's on the Nellyville album, which I knew, and I just Googled it. So it's even earlier than I thought, 2002. So I would have been 12. But I knew every word to this song by heart. They make jokes about how modern day music and all the stuff it says in it. But then do you ever listen back to some of the things you grew up hearing? So you're like, maybe it's not a modern day problem. Because if you aren't familiar with this song, it's talking about getting hot and taking all your clothes off. Literally, that's the lyrics to this song.
Yes.
And then a lot of other words. But I still, Tim, know every word to this song by heart. 12-year-old Joy listened to it on MTV or whatever I was listening to at that point. And, for what it's worth, it is a fond memory in the back of my head. And in the video, I don't know if you've seen the video, Tim, they're all in a club. And of course, it's getting hot. Everybody's sweating. Clothes start coming off. That's the whole joke, right? Well, at one point, there's a record. There's a guy who's supposed to be like a DJ, right? And he's got a record. But let's be honest, it's not really a DJ. And he's like, no, the roof is on fire. No, but what he's trying to tell them is the actual roof is on fire. But because of that old thing where you go and they're going, we don't need no water, let the blank happen. And he's like, no, the roof is, and then he just gives up and starts playing music again. And the sprinklers come on. And that's how they get everybody in the video with sprinklers on, quality of music.
I'm familiar with the song. I've never seen the video.
I mean, it's pretty cheesy. It's literally just a bunch of people dancing at a club, Tim. Like, it's not really that scandalous. But yeah, I just remember it's some guy, he's supposed to be DJing. He's got like one earphone off because he's like a cool DJ, Tim. He wants to hear the crowd, and he's scratching a record, but there's no actual record sound happening in the song. And then he's like, hold up, but literally just like the hold up. And then he's like, the roof. It's on fire. No, he's like, the roof. But, it's a throwback to the old rap thing. The roof is on fire. And then everybody's like, we don't need no water. And then he's like, no. The actual roof is on fire. And then the sprinklers cut on. And he just gives up and starts playing the music again with the record scratch. But there's still no record scratch in the song.
It sounds like a cinematic masterpiece. It really does.
Yes, Tim, it is quality. I mean, of all the things that rank up there in my childhood, this one's in the middle. It's really I hadn't thought about that in years. And then I just remembered that happens in that music video.
Hannah has a similar early memory that she cherishes, much like that. It's Sir Mix-a-Lot's Baby's Got Back. She used to go around her grandmother's house and put MTV on, and that was playing all the time, and she thought it was the most scandalous thing she'd ever seen. And even now, occasionally we'll put the video on, and she says, it just takes me right back.
So I guess I've never told Tim about my party trick. I have a party trick. It is all early 90s and early 2000s kind of rap music. So it's Baby Got Back, it's MC Hammer, it's Hot in Here, it's all of that. I know them all by heart and can rap them very well. And if you put enough liquid courage in me, it comes out a lot. I mean, I know every word like it's bad. And me and my friend Jennifer, who goes to a lot of my concerts with me, we're in the car and everything, and out of nowhere, I'll just start rapping the most random early 90s rap song. And she's like, where did that come from? I'm like, this is my party trick. If you're ever on one of those name the lyric shows and you need to call someone and ask them about an early 2000s rap song that probably is cheesy as no other at this point, just call me. I gotcha.
I know the lyrics to Spitting Images, the Chicken song. I don't know if that counts for anything, but that's probably not even a song.
So I guess we'll call you for that one.
and I think I know all the words to Black Lace's Agadoo and Superman, but I don't know whether I should brag about that fact.
I don't know. I mean, mine's more of Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer. But we'll take it, Tim. I mean, also it's Tricky, Run DMC. I know every lyric to that one. I know Bust a Move, Young and DMC, whatever their name was. Anyway, and then I know obviously I know Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby, even though I kind of feel bad for knowing all of that one. We could be here for days, but obviously Sir Mix-a-Lot is up there. I spent a lot of my childhood memorizing all these songs. That's the point of this whole thing. And we're going to step into that kind of realm with the next one. And I'm hoping Tim knows this song. It's Here Comes the Hot Stepper. And I'm not even going to try to say the name of this band.
I don't know that one.
You've never heard Here Comes the Hot Stepper? I'm the lyrical gangster murder.
No.
So they're a reggae band from 1994. That's shocking. Maybe it was an American thing.
Maybe, yeah, it doesn't. It sounded like MCP Pants from Aqua Teen Hunger Force from what you were saying.
It does. It goes here comes the hot stepper, murder. I'm the lyrical gangster, murder. Don't want to copyright us. Anyway, that's what it does. But so the only reason this song comes to my head was there's this Family Guy skit. And in Family Guy, there's this one section where Peter is trying to run and touch a tree. And every time he does it, that song plays. And when he goes to run off, he goes, here comes the hot stepper. And then he runs and jumps to try to get the tree like he's the hot stepper.
Yeah, I mean, people have heard of that in the UK, but it's nothing that entered my realm. I was around in 1994, whenever it was, but I had no knowledge of that.
So it's reggae. He's Jamaican. And his name is, I'm not even going to try to say it. It's INI. And the last name is KAMOZE. And it's a reggae fusion. I mean, I don't think it's 100% reggae. It's kind of you know what I mean? An R&B kind of reggae thing. I think the guy's from Jamaica. but I could be wrong. But it was definitely it is a more obscure song, but I could have heard it playing in like clubs in the early 90s. So maybe it's an American thing. I'll have to get Tim to listen to this one because this one's fun. Maybe I'll send Tim the Family Guy clip of Peter trying to touch the tree because it solves it. All right. So since Tim is not familiar with that one, I'm going to go with one I know he's familiar with, and that's Hot for Teacher.
Yes, by Van Halen. Now, this is from the 1984 album. Eddie Van Halen it's a classic example of the Eddie Van Halen Brown sound. He's using his Super Lead Plexi. He's using a basket weave 4x12 cabinet, and he's using his famous Frankenstein guitar. And the video is fabulous. The video probably couldn't be made these days. It has kids and women in bikinis and stuff these days they'd never allow in a video. And it was filmed in an actual high school. It's like Pasadena High School or something like that. And they got permission to do it, and they filmed it on the weekend. And I think the principal got fired after it aired on MTV because though it was seen as acceptable for MTV, the fact that what went on in the school at that weekend, they were not happy with that.
The HR in me understands because I would probably had to have fired him too.
Exactly.
I'd been like, well, that was cool. You might have needed to run it by me first. Like, you have to wonder, did he run it by anybody, or you just go, here goes Van Halen, here's the school for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you would think, well, there's two things. One, you would think that maybe they would say, well, what's going to go on? And maybe they thought it was going to be a straight performance video. But equally, maybe Van Halen knew the kind of video they wanted to make and decided, well, we better not tell them because they won't let us do this.
Ooh, that's a good point. Because like, I feel like there had to be like waivers signed. You can't just record like national broadcasts. And you know what I mean, Tim? There's a lot of loss there that would have been crossed.
Exactly.
But yeah. And then also like were the kids just random kids that were called in? Did they find them on the street? I have questions. Yeah,
I would imagine the kids probably came from like a casting agency or something.
I would think so.
There's a kid in the video that's dressed to look like each member of Van Halen, which is kind of cool.
It's adorable, honestly. But yeah,
and then you've got Waldo at the beginning. He gets on the school bus, and then the bit at the end, like this hot rod car pulls up and then picks them up, the kids up, and then it speeds away. That car I don't know if he still has it, but it was David Lee Roth's car, and it's like a 42 Ford or something super modified type thing. And I used to listen to David Lee Roth. He used to have a radio show in New York, and I used to download the like podcasts of it every day. This was in the sort of early 2000s. This is like MP3 downloads for podcasts was just beginning. Yeah, and he was saying that in California, the windscreen on your car has to be at least 4.7 inches or something. It's like some kind of state statute that it has to be that. So he said, so when I had the car made, he said I had the windscreen made 4.7 inches.
Well, it's probably like to pass whatever inspection they require there or something. Yeah.
But the song is so iconic. And when the Alex Van Halen drum fill comes in at the beginning. Yeah. It's and Eddie comes in with that tapping piece at the beginning. I mean, 1984, the whole album in 1984 is great. I mean, you've got Oh Wait, you've got, of course, got Jump on there. Panama's on there, for goodness sake. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when Hot for Teacher comes in, I mean, it's just amazing.
See, you guys, I segued into this since Tim couldn't talk about the last song, so I knew he'd have a lot to say about this one. All right, the next one is one that I find is a personal favorite. I'm fairly certain Tim will know this. And it's sometimes written, Love is like a heat wave. It's sometimes just written heat wave, but it's Martha and the Vandellas. Yeah,
I think I've just seen it written as heat wave.
I found it written both ways, but I think on the album it's just heat wave. Mm-hmm. And it was obviously a Motown. Now, what I found was interesting is it actually says it wasn't recorded at like their Detroit. Where was it? It was recorded. Linda Ronstadt. Oh, no, the original Linda Ronstadt. Did you know she was the original who sang that song, Tim?
No, I didn't know that.
I did know that her, oh no, she remade it. Okay, her remake, not the original. Don't come for me, internet. Was actually at the Sound Factory in Hollywood, but it was not near as famous. So there's two versions of this song. There's the original, that is the Martha and the Vandross, and then there's the Linda Ronstadt version. Now it was released July 9th, 1963, and was it's like certified platinum, like 7 times in a row. It's one of the biggest songs, and it peaked at number 4 on the Billboard. It stayed on for 4 weeks, and it is a favorite of mine because I love my Motown, but also it was used in Sister Act. Whoopi Goldberg sang it in Sister Act. I remember that. It's part of her nightclub. At the beginning of Sister Act, she's working in the nightclub before she becomes a nun or whatever, and she sings that with her little 60s girl group.
Can I just say I've never seen Sister Act, but Sister Act 2 has the best tagline of any film ever. Sister Act 2, back in the habit. I mean, they were obviously sitting around brainstorming for that, writing that film. And then whoever said that, they were like, yes, that's it. It's done. Yes, yes.
But I will say, if you had to think, so I think sometimes people forget how good of a singer Whoopi Goldberg is. Because have you ever heard any of the music from the Sister Act? It's great. She's a great singer. Like, yeah, it's really good.
Did she sing in Ghost or did she not sing in Ghost? I don't think so.
Not to my knowledge, but the only thing I remember from Ghost is the scene with the him and then they're making the pot. Yeah, it's like a pottery wheel. That's all I remember from Ghost. I can't tell you anything else that happened in that movie.
Yeah, I have seen Ghost, but equally, I think I remember Whoopi Goldberg being in it, and I remember the potting wheel thing.
Is Whoopi Goldberg an EGOT?
I don't know.
She's probably close because I know she has a tone. Yeah, here we go. She is. She is one of the 7 entertainers to win the EGOT: Emmy Award, Grammy Award, Academy Award, and then a Tony Award. And then she also received the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Okay. I don't know what that is, but I imagine it's for comedy. But anyway, she, I was just going to say she's got a beautiful voice and people don't really, she's one of those people that I think people think as a singer or an actor first and then a singer secondary. But in Sister Act, she was wonderful. And she's also really funny. Anyway.
Is she still on The View?
No clue, Tim.
See, US daytime TV is something that I saw for about 3 months. When I moved here, I'd planned not to work for 3 or 4 months before I sort of settled in. Because you had stuff to do and moving and things like that. I moved to a different country, so I budgeted for about 3 to 4 months of not working. So we stayed with Hannah's parents, and they have the TV on 24/7. So I got into knowing when The View was on, when Dr. Phil was on. Let's Make a Deal, and I mean, it got to the point where I could play the theme tune to Dr. Phil.
That's funny.
Because when it goes into the commercial, it's a tune. And then when it comes out of the commercial, it's the same tune, but backwards.
See, I know American daytime television from when I was like in high school and I stayed home sick from like high school. And so like for me, it was Jerry Springer and Maury Povich. So it was like, are you the baby's daddy or not? And then like people throwing chairs at each other on Jerry Springer. So
the Maury Povich is, I don't know if it's still on, but it was filmed in Connecticut. And Hannah and I were considering going to see it being taped, but we wrongly thought it was New York City, but it's Connecticut.
Oh, look at you guys. Yeah, I mean, and then so when Maury Povich started, he did more than the paternity tests, but then it got all crazy and all he did was the paternity test. I don't know. I will say I was a sucker for Jerry Springer, as embarrassing as that is. I would enjoy the occasional. This has not been anything about the song, but if this is the way love's supposed to be, it's like a heat wave. That's all I can tell everybody. A wonderful song. I love that song. All right. So more about Heat. Let's see. Oh, so this one doesn't say Heat or Hot, but I thought it still counted. And it's Disco Inferno by the Tramps.
Yes.
Inferno.
I think you can get that one through on a technicality. Now, that one, of course, is from the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, which is that film that's enjoyed by many. And an interesting fun fact, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack was the greatest selling album, or the biggest selling album in the world before Michael Jackson's Thriller.
I knew that. And the reason I knew that, it's kind of sad, but I knew it. They did a Saturday Night Fever episode on Glee. And on the episode, all the high school students are making fun of disco. And Stu Sylvester, the coach or whatever, was like, I'll have you know, this is the highest selling album. Also, I grew up on that because my mom loved that movie. She also loves Urban Cowboy. I'm sure you're familiar with that. That's also John Travolta. And I grew up on Footloose. Those three were probably the top three movies in my house for my mother.
Well, do you know, the reason I know about Saturday Night Fever is that my dad, I think he got rid of a lot of it when they moved, but he used to have every single copy of the Guinness Book of Records. His mother worked in a pub. And the way that the Guinness Book of Records started, it was a thing sent by the Guinness Brewery, and it was supposed to stop bar fights and bar arguments where someone would say, oh, Aston Villa won the World Cup in 58, and say, no, it was Liverpool. And then the bartender could pull the book out and say, oh, look, actually, this year this happened, and this is the largest something, and this is the longest. And that's what it was supposed to be for. And it was so popular, then they started publishing it. And my dad, having number one, and then he got number two, and then it got published, and then he used to collect them. And I think he still has number one, Guinness Book of Records number one. And I was curious to know what was the greatest selling album before Thriller. So I found the 1981 copy that he had, and I looked it up, and there you go. That's how I knew.
Well, there you go, Tim. I would have known. I knew that from a Glee episode, so we're very different people. But anyway, takes different people to make the world go round. But anyway, so I was thinking about this because the Disco Inferno, the trance version, is what we're familiar with from Saturday Night Fever, and probably the most notable. But I do know it was covered by Tina Turner. And actually, I did not know. It was apparently also covered by Cyndi Lauper for the Night at the Roxbury soundtrack. That was news to me.
I didn't know that. I think I've heard the T. Turner version. I know that the version on Saturday Night Fever soundtrack is so long. It's like 10 or 11 minutes long or something like that. It just never ends. And it's such a great song. I mean, you don't want it to end. So
it's 10 minutes and 54 seconds because it's up on my screen. 10 minutes and 54 seconds. The album version, the radio edit, though, is only 3 minutes and 35 seconds.
Yeah, but I think you want to get the full Inferno. You want to get the full heat from that Inferno. So you need almost 11 minutes of it.
Well, I would really, though, Tim, be curious to hear the Cyndi Lauper version because her voice would be very interesting on this song.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think because I've watched Night at the Roxbury and it's one of Charlie's favorite, but I can't place it. Apparently, it's also been covered by a bunch of other people that we really wouldn't know off the top of our head, which, I mean, that makes sense. But yeah, so I picked that one because, as you guys know, I love my disco. Who are the songs? Looking to see if there's any other notable songwriters or anything on that hit, but I can't find anybody. All right, so let's go back to our hot music. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Tim's like, I'm done with you. All right. Anyway, so the next one is "Burning for You" by Blue Oyster Cult.
Yeah, well, I like some Blue Oyster Cult. And the thing about Blue Oyster Cult is most people only know Don't Fear the Reaper. But they have so many albums and so much good stuff. And Blue Oyster Cult, I think it was last year or the year before, actually released a new album. Yeah,
I heard that. And I guess I never really thought about it. But, I mean, there's like 1,000 other... for those who, I don't want to say Blue Oyster Cult all the time, so I'm going to say BOC. That's popular. We're going to talk about them. But, I mean, Burning for You, though, I would say is a major hit.
Yeah, it's like it's probably in the same class as that Godzilla song they do as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Don't Fear the Reaper is going to be their number one hit, and it's going to be the main one they hear. But what I find would be interesting is I've never seen them live, but I've heard they put on almost like an orchestra level show.
Yeah,
like,
they played.
So cool.
They were in Roanoke a year or two ago, and I couldn't go because I had a gig myself on that day. And they have their guitar player is a guy called Richie Castellano. And he does this. I may have spoken to him of him before, but he does this podcast called Bang Geek, and he also has a YouTube channel. He's an incredibly talented multi-instrumentalist, and he, video editing, sound engineering, stuff like that. He's the total package. But he was encouraging Blue Oyster Cult to write new music, and then he released a new album with him, and I've got it. It's absolutely fantastic.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I've heard good things about everybody who's went and seen them live. And sometimes they do light shows and stuff. I've heard like they're supposed to be really cool live. And I feel like they're one of those bands that's kind of got a psychedelic feel to me. So that doesn't surprise me. But apparently I was just reading The Burning for You was written by lead guitarist Buck Durham. I don't know if I'm saying his last name.
Buck Dharma. It's not his real name, but his stage name is Buck Dharma.
Okay, Buck, whatever Tim said. It says, and rock critic Richard Meltzer wrote numerous songs for the band with many in conjunction with Buck. Buck wrote his parts of the song in his garage studio, and they said Richard would write on a typewriter, and we'd have sheets of lyrics on a page, and it would just look like poetry with a lot of lowercase and free form and free association. I don't know how long I had the lyrics, but it was 1980, and we moved to Connecticut. I wrote in my garage studio. I'm quite proud of it. It was one of Richard's more sentimental lyrics. So I'm guessing Buck was putting like the music to these lyrics. Something he's not known for.
Okay.
So apparently he said this was one of his more sentimental songs. I do find it interesting they said it was written more like poetry because a lot of their songs kind of seem to flow or have like a little bit of a different sound than you hear from other music. So I wonder if that comes from that.
It could be.
Interesting. I just thought that was interesting. Apparently, Lisa Marie Presley did a cover of Burning for You.
Oh, wow.
And that's in 2005. I don't even know. Did she do music?
I think so. I mean,
I'm not sure I even knew that. Okay, well.
There we go. I mean, you find these things out.
I mean, she is the child of Elvis, and she was married to Michael Jackson and Nicolas Cage. So maybe.
I mean, she has rock and roll connections.
I guess I just didn't know if she ever did music. Well, anyway, that one was new for me. All right. The next one is In the Heat of the Moment by Asia.
Yes.
In the Heat of the Moment.
I was actually having a conversation with somebody today about that first Asia album. And the first Asia album, the self-titled Asia album, is almost like a greatest hits in so much as that every song on it is like, yes, great song, great song, great song, great song. But at the top of that song tree is Heat of the Moment. That is such a good track.
So I always remember this story of when I was in high school when I think of this song. So in my high school, when you became a senior, which is like your final year of high school, right, when you graduate, there was a separate area in the lunchroom that we got to sit in. And in that lunch area, there was like our own CD player. And you could bring your CDs and play music. It was just like a special thing for you being a senior. Well, I brought in a mix album. I don't want to say mixtape because it was on a CD. But anyway, I brought in an album I burned. And it was just a random array of songs. I remember the Kinks were on there. I think Journey was on there. And Heat of the Moment by Asia was on there. Quality music right here, too.
That's all you want right there. I mean, what a great mix album.
I think it was Lola the Kinks. I don't remember what Journey song it was. And then I remember Heat of the Moment was on there. And then some other various songs were on there. But anyway, so I put it in and we would always get in trouble because we would turn it up too loud. And the teacher would, well, I know, it's such a classic high school thing. And they get annoyed with us and turn it back down. Well, I put the album in and Heat of the Moment came on and I had gotten yelled at by one of the teachers to go turn it down. So I got up to turn it down and once some random guy come up to me and went, "Don't you dare turn that off. That song's great." And I went, "I know, I'm the one who brought the album." And that's what I think of when I think of that song. I was like, even though, like, I mean, this is 2008 and I realized the song's from 1982, but I was like, I'm the one who brought the album. But I actually think, and there's a lot of people from my generation, like Charlie, who know this song because South Park did a version of it with Carmen singing. And it's actually pretty funny because it gets very expressive in it. But I think of this song, it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. But that album was self-titled, right? It's just called Asia, I think, right?
Yeah, self-titled, just called Asia.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely their number one song, but they had a few other hits in America. Were they super popular in the UK?
It's hard to say. Certainly, when I was first getting into music, the pop radio that I was listening to was not playing Asia. Asia is something I've discovered after the fact.
I feel like that's true of me, but also I wasn't alive when they were first coming out, so it's hard for me to tell. Because I know there's like that Soul Survivor song, Time Will Only Tell, but I would definitely say Heat of the Moment. And every time I say heat of the moment, my brain always goes, telling me what my heart felt. That's all I hear in my head. It's kind of like when someone says final anything, I always think it's the final countdown, regardless if it's referenced or not. I can't
of course.
not do
I mean,
it.
it's the final countdown. It goes, ba, 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 ba.
And I spent so many times, and like there'll always be one person in the room going, I'm glad someone else did it. But like, I know it's cliche, but that's all I hear anytime someone says final or countdown. Anyway, all right. So another one I'm fairly certain Tim will be familiar with, or I'll be sad if he does it because we're winding it down. I think we got like 3 or 4 songs left. Is The Heat Is On. It's on the streets.
Yeah, of course. That is a great song.
Yes. So if you guys have never heard that song, first of all, that's very sad. That's Glenn Fry, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, am I going crazy? Sadly, did he pass away last year or the year before last?
I think it was possibly the year before last, I think.
Well, anyway, sadly enough, we lost him, but he's a great artist and I love his music. But it's from Beverly Hills Cop, the movie, I think is where that song comes from. Mm-hmm. Which it's obviously a cop song, but I also think it's been used in like every movie relating to heat and like cops since the beginning of time.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's such a definitive kind of sound to it. That kind of up sound that it has. Even outside of the cop connections, I've heard it used in TV and films and stuff. Even outside of that.
Yeah, but the other thing is, I also think it sounds a little bit like, and that's why I made sure I was like, it's Glenn Fry right before I said that, because I just wrote the titles of the songs and I'm going from memory. But anyway, it almost sounds like Huey Lewis in the News to me.
Yeah, I would say that because I mean it doesn't sound like Eagles, but it sounds more like, you're right. It sounds more like Huey Lewis.
Like if you put me on a test and I didn't think of Glenn Fry right off the top of my head, I would guess Huey Lewis in the News. And I think it's because it's got like that horn section and that background and the way it sounds. It's very 80s. What was this, like 84, 85, something? Yeah, if I had to guess, if it wasn't for the voice, I would think it was Huey Lewis in the News, which we both talked about are great bands.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other band that I can think of has that same sound, though. Trying to think of anybody else, but nothing's coming to mind.
No, that Huey Lewis sounded very definitive. That kind of pop sound with the horns and
yeah. And there's a saxophone in this song, so maybe that's what gives it the Huey Lewis sound.
Do you know what it actually sounds very similar to? You know the Huey Lewis song from Sports, Finally Found a Home?
Yeah.
They're not dissimilar.
Well, apparently, while I'm looking here, did you know Kenny Loggins did a version of The Heat Is On?
I wouldn't surprise. He didn't write it, did he?
Did Kenny Loggins sing The Heat Is On? Beverly Hill Cop. Let me go back. Everybody, give it a Goog right on live on air.
Yeah, because he wrote a lot of songs in that era.
It wouldn't surprise me because we talked about, what was that other song we were surprised he wrote? It was him and Messina.
Yeah, Jim Messina.
The Heat Is On, Glenn Frey song. No, it looks like it was written by Harold somebody and Kenneth Farser.
Okay.
Anyway, apparently he sang a version of it, which doesn't surprise me though, because with the sound of his voice, it would work.
Sure.
And yes, if anybody was wondering, David Winford apparently does a saxophone. Don't know who that is, but they're very important to tell me. He's the one doing the saxophone on this article.
He's probably some session saxophone player who's played on everything.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, I love a good saxophone. It really makes all the difference. Let's see here. It says, according to Fry, he was invited to an early screening of Beverly Hills Cop. About 2 months later, he was sent a demo of a song written by that Keith guy and that Harold guy to be used in the film to see if he was interested in singing the song. Fry agreed and recorded the vocal part in one day. The following day, he played the guitar and recorded the backup vocals himself and was paid $15,000 for his work.
There we are. And then I spent probably 2 complete weeks on and off making a 90-second Knight Rider video, and what did I make from that? Just the joy of doing it.
I mean, that's fair. Oh, Michael Huey. Is he from Huey Lewis in the News? No, he just happens to have the last name Huey. Okay, I got hopeful, everyone. Never mind. Not related. Just ignore what I said. Tim's like, no, Joy. All right. So the next one is Some Like It Hot by Power Station.
Yes. So the Power Station was a supergroup of sorts. It was Robert Palmer singing, and it was a bunch of guys from Duran Duran. And I think Nile Rodgers is in it as well, produced it, if I remember correctly.
Let's see. I've got it up. Let's see if he produced it. That wouldn't surprise me in any way. Label, producers. No, it's Bernard Edwards.
Yes, and do you know who Bernard Edwards was? He worked with Nile Rodgers in Chic. He was the bass player.
Oh, you're right. Now that I said that. And then, of course, there's Get It On, Bang a Gong, which is also one of their favorite songs.
Yeah, which is a T-Rex cover. That first Power Station album is really good.
It's just it was just like this is upon his debut album. All right, let's see here. I've never seen this. I knew it was like they were like a kind of it's like Robert Palmer, Tawny. Oh, that's who it is. Tony Thompson of Chic was part of the band, Tim.
Ah, there we are.
There you go. Annie and John Taylor from Duran Duran. There you go.
Yeah.
Original plan was for one project was for 3 musicians, Taylor, and Thompson, to provide music continuing to an album of material with a different singer performing on each track.
Okay.
The approach included Mick Jagger, Billy Idol, Mars Williams, and Richard, which obviously didn't work out, but that was their goal when they started this whole Power Station thing.
Oh, and I think, and in the end, I think Robert Palmer just sang the whole thing.
He did. And then the other song that I know from them is Get It On, Bang It Gong, which Tim said is a remake, of course. But anyway.
That's a T-Rex cover.
And then Communication is another song that I've heard from them.
Yeah, and I think Communication's off that first Power Station album. And
that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and in fact, I recommend people check that out. If you pull it up on your MySpace or your ICQ or wherever you get your music, and have a listen to it, because it is really good.
Roger Taylor?
Yeah, not that Roger Taylor.
Oh, Duran Duran. I get that confused. Yes. I'm like, wait, where did his name come from? Never mind.
Yeah, there was a Roger Taylor in Duran Duran. There's their brothers, John Taylor and Roger Taylor.
That's funny. Everybody's probably like, Joy, not the same. All right, we're going to end on a certain song, Tim. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
It's I'm feeling hot, hot, hot. It's literally called Hot, Hot, Hot by the Merry Men. I don't know if they were married. I really don't know much about this band, but I've heard that song. And every time someone says something about being hot, I sing that. I can't even tell you what the rest of the song is.
No, it's a kind of song that you hear when you're on holiday, like in Europe somewhere in a disco. That's where it comes from.
That's all I know. And I feel like it's like there's probably been like a remake of it.
Oh, there's been 50 remakes of it. I remember being in Cyprus in Ayia Napa, which is a very bizarre place for me to be because it's known as a clubbing destination. But I was in a Swedish holiday resort in Ayia Napa, which is like being in Sweden in Cyprus. But anyhow, but I remember that song playing. Like, of course, they'd have like music at the poolside and things like that. And they must have had a playlist of like great weather holiday songs, and Hard, Hard, Hard was one of the ones that's on there.
Well, apparently another guy recorded it. Buster Poindexter did another version. Don't know who that is, but apparently he did. And the original guy who wrote it for this band, what are they called? Hot, Hot, Hot was written and first recorded by Monastery musician Arrow. For his 1982 studio album, the song was commercially successful for the dance floor, as Tim was just saying, with covers subsequently released by in several countries, including the 1987 American singer Buster Poindexter. The era's first hit, peaking number 59 on the UK chart. A remix, there you go. I knew there was still remix up there. Dubbed as the World Carnival Mix 94, of course it was released in 94 and peaked higher than the original. And later in a national public radio interview, Johansson called the tune the bane of his existence, owning its perversion popularity as a karaoke and wedding song. I would imagine that would probably get on your nerves, and because if that was like your one hit, and all you heard is people going, "I'm feeling hot, hot." I literally have no clue what the rest of the song sounds like.
He's saying, "Hey, away, feeling hot."
Maybe. But when I started making this playlist, I said I had to put it on here. But yeah, I can't tell you. But there we go. Thankfully, me and Tim are not feeling that hot tonight. Though last week probably would have been more appropriate for this topic. Do you have any wise words for them, Tim, before we go?
Just be kind, everybody. Just be kind.
Sounds good. All right, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to come.